Welcome to Destination Unknown, the podcast where we focus on falling in love with the journey. I'm your host, Blazik, and I'm excited to share the next hour with you.
Hey, don't it just flow through me? Back when at first I came over me, I did not know what it's supposed to be. Remember them turning me down, but how could you ever say no to me? Well, guess I'm still right where I'm supposed to be. But you ain't see where I'ma take it. Well, I don't know where I'ma take it, but I know this road got no
What's that plaque in the back? Is that Pepsi?
That is, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is.
Hell yeah. So yeah, dude, the podcast is named Destination Unknown, unless I decide to change it because it felt right at the time, but I haven't recorded an episode yet. So if after this episode it doesn't feel right, maybe I'll change it.
Word.
But
Hence the destination unknown.
Hence, oh my gosh, now we can't change it. Now we can't change it. Well, cool. I'm gonna do an intro. I never do intros, but I'm gonna try it for this new series. Joining us today, you might have heard him from the NBA, the NFL, ESPN, Fortnite, or HBO's award-winning series Euphoria. Today we have Tarik. So we'll put our hands together over here. It's just me. But Tarik, what's up, man? How you been?
Dude, I'm amazing, man. It's all things considered, definitely amazing. Like just very, very grateful, and it's always cool to just be able to sit and catch up with you.
I know, man. Our catch-ups are far and few between podcasts, but it's kind of better that way because we can
Yeah.
just sit down for an hour, no cell phones, and just chat.
What's our cadence? Is this like once a year
I
about
think
that?
so. I think so. That's all right. That's all
You know
right.
what's crazy is that you and I haven't met in person yet.
Dude, I know.
Isn't
You
that wild?
don't you have your internet friends where it feels like you really know them, but
I
then
feel
when
like I feel like we've had nights out at a bar in Kansas or something.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it is weird. I was actually in the wedding of someone that I met on the internet, and I've only met them one time. But
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy how that works, man.
Yeah.
Um, well, dude, I have a opening question for you that I think will kind of steer this whole podcast. Have you seen those GQ can't live without videos? So it's like Ed Sheeran can't live without, and then they just go through. Have you seen those things?
I don't think I have.
All right, well, it's a thing. So we're gonna do the Tariq version. So we're gonna do things that Tariq can't live without, but they cannot be materialistic. So th- things you
Perfect.
can't live without that aren't materialistic. So just off the top of your head, what are a few things that you can't live without?
All right, this might seem like an oversimplification or maybe like super obvious, but like oxygen, air, or I guess the more meditative word would be like without my breath, you know? Um, that'd be the first thing. And then from there, I'd say my peace and joy.
Okay. So are those your priorities? Like, do you feel like you prioritize those
A hundred
in
percent.
a very like focused way?
100%, dude. That's probably
So,
like the main, those are the things that I pay attention to mostly on a day-to-day basis. And that's why, when you said, how are you? I'm like, all things considered, pretty amazing. That doesn't mean that there's not, challenges and things like that, but yeah.
the simple things, right?
Yeah,
Man,
man.
it's so peace, what'd you say? Breath, peace, and joy.
Yep.
So do you feel like those are in order?
Yeah, definitely breath first, right? Because that is, I guess, the basis of my existence as a human being and the physical experience. Like once your air stops, then you cease to exist. And then because I'm here and I'm existing and I can breathe, and it makes sense that I might as well be a joyful and peaceful human being. And joy and peace are kind of synonymous for me.
So I think there's definitely times in your life where you didn't have joy or peace. Like what's been the journey like to get towards those two things?
Um, I say the journey starts with personal growth, right? Which, like, for you and I, obviously we both know, like, those things have been, that thing has been important to us for the past probably like 5 years of our lives. Like, since we've known each other, that's kind of like what really brought us together anyways on the podcast, right? Is like our personal growth journeys. Um, so in growing personally, I once heard this thing, or this someone said basically the best way to track your journey, your personal growth journey or your spiritual journey, because once you're into personal growth, you're like, how do I know if I'm progressing, right? Because you'll take some steps forward, then you'll seem to take some steps back. But this person said the number one thing that you should pay attention to, that's going to be a good indicator as to whether you're progressing in the right direction or not, is every day when you wake up, are you becoming more joyful and more peaceful? Like, that's the metric. And it didn't just resonate. It almost just like clicked. I was like, that is the metric, right? Like, when you're a kid, it's mostly joy, right? And playfulness until the ice cream falls off the cone or your toy gets taken away. Then you have these moments of just like, sadness and whatnot. But the measurement of a child and like their experiments, if you're trying to measure like a child's experience of life, the only thing you really have to go by is like how much they're smiling and laughing and playing. They're not adults yet where like you're measuring finances and relationships and sex life and drinking and like a whole bunch of other stuff. So I just felt like that really made sense for me, and like looking at the way I came in, I kind of want to go out the same way, like
That's
laughing and playfully.
that's really interesting because I feel like for me the personal growth journey has been so, like, the pendulum has swung so much for me because
Yeah.
I got into personal growth and all these motivational videos, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be this, and this so I can be rich and I can be this. And then you start, like, you hit that level of the personal growth and it almost becomes exhausting for me. It becomes exhausting. It becomes performative. It
Hmm.
becomes a little fake. And then if, like, I feel like if you're fortunate enough, you hit the next level of personal growth, which is I just want to fucking be happy. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to be happy. And now how do I almost tear apart level one of the personal growth journey to
Hmm.
where I can make that happen and I can just be content and happy and simple. Like, those are, it's just kind of ironic how that journey goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't find that in those early books. The early books are telling you get
Yeah.
rich, get disciplined. And I think those things are necessary to become a person that can hit the next level, but and I think both of you or both of us would say that yeah, money matters.
Hmm.
Discipline matters. All of that matters, but the person like me 2 years ago would definitely not be aligned in the values that I have today.
Really.
Yeah, like I have four main priorities that I'm trying to live every day by. Number one is sobriety. Like, that's my foundation of the day, right? Like, sobriety. My next is my health and fitness. And then under that is work, just because I do feel like that does allow me. One, I enjoy work now. So that's a big part of why it's a top priority for me. Two, I feel like it gives me the finances to be able to even fund those first two things.
Yeah.
Like, really, you know.
For real, yeah.
And then lastly, is my social life. And I actually pulled away dating from that. So I think I've been trying to really date pretty aggressively the past 2 years.
Hmm.
And I don't think that I'm attracting what I want. So I want to work on those
Hmm.
four things as a whole, just like become the person that I would want to date and then go from there. But all that to say, like, those are not what I think my priorities were 4 years ago. They would have looked very,
Yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
different.
Absolutely. Okay, that's so dope, by the way. Everything you just said, just amazing. question for you, because I haven't really like I haven't really struggled with drinking or really any substance abuse for that matter. I have had, vices that aren't good. So, there's a correlation there. But I feel like sobriety is such a watered down, overused word. And so I guess my question is, would I be correct in saying that when you say sobriety, what you mean is, um, I assume it's not like, I guess I'll break them out into two halves. Like on one half, there's the obvious part, which is like not drinking a ton or like using a substance to procure feelings or escape other feelings, right? But then on the other side, the side that has a little bit more depth, which is like the byproduct, I guess, of sobriety, would it be just allowing yourself to feel everything as the true you and being the one to procure the feelings that you want to feel on a day-to-day basis rather than putting that in the hands of something externally.
It's
Would
a big
that be
part.
would that be accurate in stating it that way?
It's a big part of it. I think me and my buddy Tyler talk about this a lot. Like, we really just want the truth. I mean,
Mm,
at the end of the day, we can do stuff to make ourselves feel good. We can tell ourselves stories that make us feel good, but we
mm,
really just want the truth. And I think for me personally, when drinking, I'm not giving myself the truth. I'm covering that up. I'm making myself feel numb. I'm making myself even feel attracted to someone I'm not attracted to. Anything but the truth, really.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that that's a big thing.
How do you know what's true and what's not true?
I think when I'm sober, it becomes very obvious. So I've been on this sobriety journey, I would say, for about 3 years. The last year wasn't the best year for me. Like, out of all my years of sobriety, I've struggled the most
Hmm.
over the last year. I had something happen within the last month that was like a true rock bottom moment for me,
Hmm.
um, that I don't really want to dive into, but that like gave me that rock bottom that I really needed. And now I can kind of like bounce back up.
Yeah.
But I would just say, like, over when I'm on a sober streak, I can look back at when I'm drinking and I'm like, it's all lies. It's everything I did was a lie. It's all lies.
Mm,
And it's really not obvious to me when I'm struggling with that versus when I've got sober days built up and then sober months built up, and then it becomes very obvious to me,
wow.
just the clarity of it all.
The longer you go, the more clarity there
Yeah,
is.
more
Okay.
clarity, and it really just allows me to live life how I want to. So the reason that it's my number one priority is because I can't do number two on my list, health and fitness, if I don't execute on number one. Because I'll skip the gym in the morning because I'm hungover.
Hmm.
I'll feel like shit, so I'm not being healthy. Therefore, parlays into number three, I can't work well. I can't focus at work. I can't podcast. I can't do passion projects because I'm just really getting to the end of the day, whether that's to drink or whether that is to just feel okay, like feel okay again the next day.
Yeah. I feel that I feel like I've heard this from multiple people. I think I heard it from Taylor Swift. I think I heard it from Rick Rubin. And I translated it in so many different ways. I'm even translating it from what you're saying right now, but they say you have to protect your ability to create. By all means, like, don't stop creating. Now, this doesn't have to just be in regards to like something artistic, right? This can just be your life is something that you're creating, right? And so you don't want to stop creating your life. And what I translated that to was like some ways that you can protect your ability to create is in making sure that you're putting yourself in a position where you're always able to create. If you take yourself out of that position by doing something that the next day is going to diminish your ability to feel inspired and do the things that you want to do, like sometimes protecting your ability to create is protecting yourself from decisions that you would make on your own
Yeah.
that would harm yourself. Like, and that's that's wild to me, right? Because when you think protect from something external, something outside of you, from other people or whatever. But like, nah, like sometimes your own habits or vices, addictions, whatever it might be, even just choices, right? Which can
Hmm.
be such small things that have compounding effects. Like those things can harm your ability to create the life that you want. Or, and for me personally, it can affect my ability to like go and write a song, right?
Yeah.
Like if your mind is on other things or if your mind is foggy, um, that affects you. And it's just wild to me, that realization. Like, let me make sure that I'm protecting me as a creator, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, I I've been like away from social media and creating for a bit now, and
Mhm.
that's been for multiple reasons. I still don't love like social media and the pressure it maybe puts on myself, or how I subconsciously compare myself to others, or how I might even perform myself a bit more to get clout on social media or whatever. Um, but I've over the last week or two, I just have had the thought of like, wow, I really feel like when I'm my best self, I'm creating. And that's something like this, hence the relaunch of the podcast. But it, for me, it needs to feel genuine. And I can't create wanting something out of it. And I know that that's been the case for you as well. It
100%.
just doesn't fit, you know? And so I feel like I needed to do something where I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it my way. Like, I'm not going to let anyone influence it. I'm going to talk to the people I want to talk to. I'm going to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And if it resonates, it doesn't. But like, I don't know if you remember in this book you sent me, for listeners, like Tarik wrote a book and sent it to me. It's called You Name It. You put in there, like, you wrote something and you said like, promise me that you'll keep shining your light or something like that.
Hmm.
And I do feel like this is part of that for me, bringing people together, having conversations, and like not even sharing what I know, because I don't feel like I know shit, but just sharing my experience. And
Yeah.
then people can pick and take what they want, but just
Hmm.
sharing my experience. And you know, I think in the past I've used a podcast more as like a journal, and almost like trying to help myself and figure things out, where that's not so much the case anymore. I want to do it as a passion project. But yeah, man, like I can't do this if alcohol is in my life, or this is one that maybe you haven't thought about. If I haven't 150% made the decision I am not drinking, then it's always in the back of my head. I could be 3 months sober, but it's in the back of my
Mm.
mind. And I'm thinking, I could maybe have one night, and that's not the end of the world. And that's what's crazy about addiction is like, you can win 999,000 seconds, but you can lose 1 second, and that
Yeah.
changes everything, which
Yeah.
is really scary.
Yeah. Dude,
But
that
you can't,
reminds,
but I can't have that in the back of my mind if I'm going to create and give to the world.
yeah. That that's powerful, man. Um,
So like, when you're navigating the world and you're like feeling at your optimal, what are things that you're doing every day to be in that space, or not doing? What are things that you're not doing?
yeah, I think that's a good question. It ends up being really simple. When I'm feeling my best, I'm at ease. and um, I'm really peaceful and meditative. Um, I kind of look at the whole point of meditation is to become meditative in all things, right? Like, I don't really view meditation as an act, even though, like, it's something that we can do, but it's really more about what am I becoming by doing these things. And for me, it's just I, I don't think of my best as everything externally going right, right? I'm
Yeah.
making tons of money, I'm creating tons of songs, my relationship is perfect, everything is perfect, and the sun is shining. Like, those things are neither here or there, right? Like, and I realize that if you look at life existentially, just from like the one of the most basic ways that we experience life is through nature. It's always going to change, right? Like, it's the sun isn't always shining. Like, there will eventually be a hurricane somewhere, there will be a tornado, a monsoon, rain, thunderstorm, global warming, like what whatever you want to call it, is coming. Like, it's going to happen. So when I'm at my best, all that means to me is that no matter what's happening externally, I feel joyful and peaceful and easeful. Like, that is it. I don't really need much more beyond that. I don't need a guarantee that uh, everything external is going to be okay, because I know it's not all the time. All I need to know is that I'm taking care of myself and preparing myself and equipping myself and building myself up, engineering myself within in such a way that no matter what comes, um, there's this equanimity within. And like, that's when I feel like I'm at my best. If there's not, if I feel like I'm being tossed and turned by like the things externally, my first my instinct actually isn't to go after the things externally and try and fix those. It's really, I'll pay attention to that, because sometimes there are certain things that you have to change in order to make sure your situation is better. But I always pay attention to how I'm feeling, and if I'm like, am I breathing really fast or really
Mm.
slow, right? Because someone who is disturbed or irate, when you're anxious, your breath, you'll notice, is going a lot faster. But when I'm calm, I'm breathing really fast. Can I be going through something in life, but also, one, have the wherewithal to go on a walk, and then while I'm on that walk, not be so bogged down and distracted by what I'm going through or what's happening within my life that I can't notice a butterfly or a leaf falling from a tree, the trees dancing in the wind, like these small things. The fact that I'm breathing, the fact that I woke up this morning, I want to always be cognizant of those things. And when I'm not, then I know that I'm not at my best.
That's your clue that, yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny too that you say calm and peace no matter what, because that's actually what, like, it's just, that's what makes us perform better too. So say you're in a extremely stressful situation, your instinct might be like, okay, I gotta knock this out and get going. But it's really just like, come down,
Mm-hmm.
be here. And now I can perform or execute the task at hand. And
100%.
that's just not the instinct. At least it wasn't for me. Still isn't for me. I know it, but that's just not the instinct, I think, for most people.
It definitely isn't. I mean, you'll hear ridiculous things, especially on the internet, right? Like, now that everyone has a voice, like, I've heard stress is good. It's a good thing. Um, it's like, I try to think of it like this. There's a state of being that you want to strive for, and like, one of the best uh, I guess like stories or analogies that I could, put it into is like imagine like you need a heart surgery in order to save your life and there's a time clock, you only got like maybe an hour or two left. Now, obviously the situation itself can be viewed as stressful, but when you think about the heart surgeon coming in, do you want your heart surgeon to be stressed out
Yeah,
and
hell no.
and anxious and like fumbling like the materials that are about to be operating on your heart, or do you want someone who's like calm? And it's not to say that there isn't a sense of urgency, right? Like that is fine. It's just like an athlete in the fourth quarter. Like obviously, the clock is ticking and you got to score. There's a job that has to be done. But who do you want operating at the table? And it's
Yeah.
like that's the person that I always want to be.
Yeah, you want Kobe. Just stone
Yeah.
cold killer, calm. Like I really do I think that's really something admirable about athletes is there's 100,000 people in the stadium and they have the ball at the free throw line and they look calm as can be. That's there's like really something to that to carry into other parts of life. So on that note, like we're saying, this is the instinct. What's something maybe not even an instinct, but something you've learned or used to practice that you no longer do? And I'll give you kind of an example. Like for me, at the start of my self-help journey, I learned about emotions and what I was feeling, and I like really dove into that. And I'm like, okay, I feel this way today. I feel that way. And I'm really like listening to this and thinking about it constantly. And I don't anymore. I don't really let my feelings dictate what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it, if I'm going to do it. To me, feelings don't matter as much anymore. I don't want them to matter. But what's something in your life where maybe at the start of your self-help journey, you dove into it and now you're like, you know what? Not for me.
Yeah, I'd say the main one that comes to mind is journaling.
Mm,
Um, that was like really important for me when I first like really started to uh, unfurl and and carve out my personal growth journey. And I don't really do it anymore. There's an aspect of it that I do want to start to incorporate again as I go on, but um, journaling, or at least the way that it's picked up for most people, or the way that society kind of views it most commonly, I guess, is just like writing down what you're thinking, right?
yeah.
Like letting your thoughts flow onto paper. And while that was important to me to start as I continued on my personal growth journey, the most important thing that I feel like I've learned so far and applied in my life is distancing myself from my thoughts
Yeah.
and um, and from my body, right? Like certain feelings within the body. This is not to say that I'm ignoring the feelings. Like I'm definitely aware. You always want to be aware. You want to be attentive, right? But similar to what you were saying, you don't want to be making every decision based on like a feeling. Like, the body has a lot of feelings biologically,
Yeah.
and if we followed all of them, it wouldn't lead to the best decisions at all times. So, um, yeah, I don't journal as much, and it's because I don't think as much as I used to. Or maybe there is a ton of thoughts, but there's so much distance now between myself and my mind that it's like I'm not taking everything that the mind thinks as a valuable piece of information that needs to be dissected and opened up and then acted upon.
Yeah.
Um, if I open up a journal right now, there's not much I'm thinking. Like what I'm thinking is about my breath. Even as we're sitting here talking, I'm like aware that the next one isn't guaranteed, and so it makes me really grateful for the one currently. Um, I'm thinking about how easeful I am. Um, and these aren't even things that I'm thinking about. I'm experiencing them in live time, so there isn't much there. what I do want to get back to when it comes to journaling, if you will, is more so um, maybe like bookmarking certain aspects of progress that I'm making within. Because
Mm.
it's like, you know how like you can't post to Instagram the inner workings of your personal development. There's no way to like show that, you know, like one of the things about personal growth that I love is like the distance between trigger and reaction. And the more you grow, the farther apart those become, right? Something that used to trigger you, like you don't even react anymore, where you used to be like trigger, bang, reaction right after. You can't post that to Instagram, you know what I mean? So there's certain things or certain ideas that I have that I do want to put on paper a little bit more that are kind of like bookmarking or documenting feelings that I'm having within, or really grand ideas that just for the sake of making sure that they come into the physical, I'd like to put them down on paper. But that's about it. And that was a really long answer, but
Dude, no,
yeah.
I love it. You saying you don't think as much, that's like exactly the space that I'm in slash trying to move forward to, because it's just it's again, this is kind of counterintuitive to the early self-growth journey where
Mhm.
all you're doing is feeling and all you're doing is thinking. Those are the two things that we're told to do.
Yeah.
Um, but life is just a lot better when you don't think as much, when you don't worry as much, because really, what is thinking and worrying gonna do for us? Not a lot. It's really not going to do a lot. So it's
Mhm.
like, what's the point? I can operate at a better, like, I can be more mindful. I can be more strategic, uh, more productive if I'm not thinking, I'm not worrying. And you just kind of let things flow. And like, I, I really think as of lately more than ever, when I'm just letting myself flow, that's when I'm operating at my best. Like I almost do the right things. Me and my buddy, me and Tyler talk about this too a lot. It's not like self-help books are teaching us anything. We know
Yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
Like we know that we're supposed to go to the gym.
Yeah.
We know that we're supposed to meditate. So why am I going to read a 300-page book that's going to tell me how to meditate when I can learn that in 1 minute and now I have all that knowledge? It's
Yep.
not saying books aren't useful, but the way that I kind of look at it is one book or one video or whatever is not going to teach us anything. Now, maybe if you surround yourself or you know, your diet per se is all self-help books and all self-help videos, you're going to start thinking in that right area, and that can be helpful.
Mhm.
But I just think that the self-help world can be a bit dangerous because you know, it's a business too, right?
Yep.
So if people are saying, "Oh, you want to feel happy? Here's my book." They might not have any qualifications or even good intentions to writing that book. Like, who's to say they do? They might just be trying to fill those 200 pages as fast as possible.
Mhm.
And like I said, we all know what to do. And I think that when I just let myself flow throughout the day, it feels good and I'm
Yeah.
productive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What are you most proud of right now, man?
Um, Nothing.
Damn it, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
Did you?
I knew you were gonna say something along the lines of nothing or I don't think pride is a good thing. I knew it was gonna be one of those two. What's energizing you then? We'll do that.
Life.
Man, the childlike spirit coming out, huh?
Yeah, man. I mean, um, if you really want to know what's energizing me right now, It's the same thing that's energizing you. It's the same thing that's energizing our planet. The same thing that's energizing the sun. That's energizing the blood flow inside of our bodies. Um, the mechanisms that allow us to move our fingers. It's energizing the air that we breathe, and the freaking universe that we live in. It's energizing the ants underneath the ground. It's whatever is energizing the fact that we breathe in what the trees breathe out, and vice versa. That's what's energizing me. That source. And that's how simple it is for me.
So simple. The most simple.
Yeah.
So when you're like, okay, so have you been on a creative kick lately, or where have you been with that?
Yeah, I'd say that this year has been the most creative of my life so far,
Really?
especially in music. But then also in like designing my life. Yeah.
Okay. So do you feel like that's like an inspiration thing? Do you think that's a like, because I know for me, creating it comes in waves, and it's not. I think it's nothing I really control. Maybe there's certain things I can do, such as living my best life. But where do you think like waves of inspiration and creativity come for you?
Um, Putting myself in a position to be receptive. So like creativity is not it's not something that like you do or something that we're responsible for. Like you're 100% right in that way, right? Like there is something known as cosmic thought, right? Which basically you can think of as like just imagine there's a cloud of all the thoughts and the existence of humanity that just they live up above the sky, okay? And this would explain why like sometimes you'll have this business idea maybe years ago and then you'll see it on freaking Shark Tank or somewhere in life. You'll just run into it and it's like, I thought of that years ago. And it's because like ideas just they drop in to us, right? And we're basically vessels to um, go out and make these things happen in real life, which is what manifestation is. It's just a return on investment. So an idea can drop in. Do you invest in that idea? How much you invest in it is going to determine the return, aka manifestation. So for me, it's about when I come into the studio, my state of being and my state of receptivity is going to determine how much I'm able to create. The more blockages that I have, the more of a blockage that I am as a vessel, the less creation is going to be able to flow through me in order to have something come out. There are so many things from you name it that I hear people like speak on, and I'm like, who wrote that? There, dude, I'll be writing a song, and like a couple of minutes in, I'm like, yo, who is
Yeah.
writing this? Like some of these lines are just crazy. How is it flowing and piecing together so well? I'll it's not me. It's just kind of flowing through me. And if I can make sure that like my vessel is clean, and that's going to mean so many different things for so many different people, but I think there is like a point where it becomes uniform in a way. It's just in a different, in a different way, but like for me, like I don't want to come into the studio with any sense of like regret for something that I did recently, the decisions that I've made recently. Um, I don't want to come in um, with anything of the past like living in my mind,
Hmm.
because that's the only place where the past can actually live, right? Like the past doesn't actually exist. It, it's like the only thing that exists is right now in this moment. There's no it's not like tangible, like it's something that you can grab and then, you know what I mean? Like you can't grab yesterday and bring it right here, right now, and like I can pass it to you through the screen. It only exists in our minds. And the stronger that the less distance there is between myself and the mind, the more that the past is able to live and be this real, like, vibrant thing that on a physiological and psychological level, it's so loud and it can bring me down. It can take me away from right now, right? And the more I allow that, the less I'm able to create. So for me, whatever I have to do, just making sure that I can receive what the universe has to offer, that to me is like where inspiration lies and where creativity lies. It's just in how receptive I am. Um, and I really, really find that to be true.
Yeah, and I think for most creatives or just people in general, the future's just as dangerous
Mm-hmm.
outcomes, because I mean every creative ever, or every person ever, has done work for a certain outcome,
Mm-hmm.
um, worked late to get the promotion, wrote the song this way because they heard it on the radio and they think that they can repeat the formula and get on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
made a podcast about this because this person did it and now I can become famous and all that shit. And I know for me, when I've executed on those plans, even if I get the result that I wanted, it's not what I actually wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It's it doesn't feel the way that I thought it would feel. And I know for you, out of, you spent a lot of time in your earlier music days really wanting to be signed, really
Mm-hmm.
wanting to, have hits, all of that. And I'm not going to say you stopped trying, but I feel like maybe when you let go of that idea,
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite calls, Euphoria calls, NBA calls. It's when you're really, like you said, being receptive to the moment and just, I'm really into being in my flow right now. I just want to like, dude, I'll be at work and I'll just stop and look up. I'll just
Yeah.
look up if I don't know what to do next. And within 10 seconds, it normally comes to me and boom,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm in action. But like by being in flow, only you can be Tarik. Only I can be Blazik. It's all we can be. Like there will never be me or you again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we can all dive into that, then that's when we're like, this is what I can give. I can't, but dude, me alone, I used to try and be you with writing music. Swear to
Mm-hmm.
God. Because like for people that don't know, I was a fan of Tarik's music before we ever met. Um, and I loved like the sad boy rap as he called it. I'm not calling it that. He called it that. I used to love that sad boy rap, and I would try and write it, and I couldn't do it like you could because you were doing it. And I just think when we approach things expecting a certain outcome, even if we get it, it's not probably what we want because we just did it with the wrong intentions going into it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I mean, almost everything of the mindscape is going to be derivative in some way, um, to something that we saw from someone else.
Yeah.
Um, and that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that as like a starting point or a spark plug.
Inspiration.
Well, yeah, 100%. And you almost have to go through that derivative phase where what you're creating is kind of like based on something that you've seen or heard.
Mm-hmm.
Even like the very language that we're speaking right now, it's based on 26 letters in an alphabet that was not invented by you or I, right? Like we're just saying words that we've learned as children to formulate sentences and piece together how we're feeling within. But yeah, you got to go through that derivative phase, um, and maybe for some they don't have to go all the way to the point where you like fully create something and then you realize and then you get what you thought you wanted and realize that it's not what you wanted. Some people don't have to go all the way there, but most people do have to go all the way there. And then it's in that process of doing that that you realize, okay, this isn't what I want. And then you begin to ask yourself, well, what is it that I want? And then you start working your way
Yeah.
back to finding that.
And that's back to being open. That's part of it too, right? Like just checking in. We're not like we talked about not feeling our feelings and thinking all the time, but like definitely checking in. Is this
Yeah.
what I want? Should I make changes? Like that's nothing has to be what we've been doing. Nothing has to stay the same. We can do whatever we want. And that's a lot of freedom. I mean, it's easy when we're in the job that we don't like to think I have to stay here and I have to do this because of XYZ. And
Mm-hmm.
those are valid reasons that you need to make money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a valid reason to stay in the job where you're waking up at 2 a.m. with anxiety. Like that's not a good reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can definitely check in and make changes when we want. But with going into the new year, somehow it's December. Um, I like to use this as a time to check in with myself and maybe come up with some new priorities and goals. I was very, very, very simple with it this year. Sobriety, health, work, social life in that order. How do
Mhm.
you look at the new year? Is that something that you do? Yeah, like how do you look at the new year?
Yeah, I think, um, I'm not socially exempt from the state of reflection that um, tends to come over us when a year is coming to an end and a new one is coming, right? Like it's just around you. Everybody's,
And we
kind of
know it's made
thinking
up.
that.
Like
Yeah,
it's obviously made up, but there is
yeah.
something to it.
But it's, I think it's important to use every opportunity that I can to be attentive to what I'm doing and what I've been doing and what I'm trying to create or like the person that I'm trying to be, the way that I want to feel on a day-to-day basis, right? The state of being that I want to be in. Now, thankfully, on a day-to-day basis, like I mentioned earlier, this is something that I'm already paying attention to. Is like, am I becoming more joyful and more peaceful? Like that's really there's there's a ton of things after that that like sure like I want to do. Like I want to be a good music artist. I want to run my charity organization and my business and like run that up as much as possible. Um, but like if I'm not joyful and peaceful, then I know that those things become a lot more difficult to do. And even if I do them without my joy and my peace, then it,
For what?
I don't even want to think about that. You know what I mean? Like I've seen it happen more than enough with others. I've seen celebrities commit suicide, people who you thought had it all. Like, it's like I know that getting things that I want externally are not going to make me joyful and peaceful. So I need to prioritize that first and then go get the things that I want. And the things that I want are mostly selfless anyways. Um, so for the new year, I just look at it, 100% as an opportunity to be attentive to life. It's just another opportunity. Now, although I feel like we should all be doing that on a day-to-day basis, ideally, if it makes it easier where like society is using this time as a day to pay attention to it, then absolutely use it. The same way I view Valentine's Day, like we should be loving every day. That should be of our nature every single day, right? But if there's a day where society is, focused on that, then use it as an opportunity. It's almost like the New Year's Day or Thanksgiving or Valentine's Day. These are like the limitless pills. So take them, but don't like wait for next year to take it again. Like take
Yeah.
it and use it and and transform it into a way to like transform you as a whole, so that every day becomes a day where you're thankful. Every day becomes a day where you're attentive and reflecting on, um, what it is that I'm doing, and what am I becoming, right? Like,
Yeah.
use every day as an opportunity to be a loving person.
And I would encourage people to simplify too. I don't think it has to be this crazy. I saw someone on Instagram the other day. They had this 365-day calendar, and they said, "Now it's easy. I've planned my whole year. Now I execute. This simple. This is the simple part."
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with it. I think simplifying your life is the better way to go. I think saying my goals for this year are to be happy and joyful. You know how to get there. You don't have to. Personally, I don't believe I need a 365-day calendar telling me what to do. I just need to make sure that in every day I find pockets of my day to make me joyful and to make me peaceful, or whatever those goals might be. I know how to stay sober. I know how to be healthy. I know how to work hard. I know how to be social.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 15 minutes putting that together. And I wrote beside them why each one was important to me. And I think that, more than a plan, is going to help me stay true to those 4 things. So I would just encourage people to simplify. If you are going to do reflection, New Year's stuff, it's something that's been really helpful for me. I historically have been the guy that maybe would try a 45-day plan day by day. And it's overwhelming. It's too much. I'm not a superhuman. I'm not someone that can do that. But what I can do is live by my priorities and make sure that I'm aligned with those. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. I think that's I agree. It's important to pay attention to what works for you. And
Bingo.
you mentioned this earlier with like the industry that is now advice and self-help from others. The most dangerous part of it is that, at least what I see, and I know like I've done this as well, is you'll learn something new, and then you go preaching it to other people without first bringing it into your own experience.
Very guilty of that
So
myself.
a big part of like the self-help industry is that a lot of the stuff that's in books or on social media, uh, it's coming from people who haven't brought the things that they are teaching into their own experience, right? Like you'll see, if if you watch sports, and occasionally the analyst will bring athletes on, and the athletes are like, have you ever stepped on the court or onto the field? Like, you're just talking, but like you've never actually done this. And like, there's so much truth to that. It's not that you're trying to be condescending at all when you say that, but it's like, if you're gonna preach something, make sure, one, that it's something that's in your own experience. On the learning side, make sure you're not just taking all advice in and then running with it. Like, you need to ask yourself, has this person personally experienced it? And then, okay, if I'm going to take this, let me go try it and see if it actually works for me. Because that, like, this is life, right? Like, people say learn from your failures, which is like, that's half of the equation. I think the other part is learning not to fail. And what I mean is like execute, right? Like, you want to also make sure that you're executing. You want to make sure that the things that you're doing are actually working for you. Because if they're not, then you quickly want to, move to something else. And
Right.
as we've learned in our personal growth journeys, it starts out as really freaking, it's dense and there's a ton of stuff that you need to be doing. But then the more you grow, the more there's like 2 phases to personal development. First you learn, and then the real part is when you start unlearning.
Yeah, damn.
That's it, right? So it's like, get to the unlearning part as quickly as possible.
You're so right, man. And that's funny you said that because that sounds sexy, right? Like first you get to learn and then you have to unlearn. I was just about to say like a lot of the stuff online is just sexy phrasing. And then we're
Hmm.
like, "Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
Hmm.
It must be true." Also, I'm going to go tell 10 of my friends that and
Yep.
act like I came up with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I feel you. Like unlearning is I've done so much unlearning in the past year and it frees up so much space, man. It alleviates anxiety. It really does just allow me to operate in a much better space. Like you got to learn everything and then you can really pick what you want, get rid of the bullshit, free up the space and here we are. Like
Yeah.
for me.
Yep.
Well, cool, man. We just hit an hour.
Did we?
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you hopping on. Let everyone know how to find you and maybe what you want them to specifically check out if that's something on your mind.
um, yeah, no, there's nothing on my mind. I think
Humble.
people will find what they want to find, you know? Um, yeah, that's where I am today.
Well, I'll put it in the show notes. What I want them to find.
Yeah, don't find me, find joy and find peace.
Love it, man. Love it. And that's why you are the behind the scenes artist and that's been awesome. It's so I love just being on a YouTube video and like I know that song or on Instagram. I'm like, that's my dude. That's my dude. All right,
Dude,
brother.
yeah.
Well, appreciate you hopping on, man. And yeah, have a good one.
Dude, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
All right, later, man.
Later.